Obviously, feel free to talk throughout my presentation, as I rudely did to Gary earlier. Hello to everyone on Periscope. If you just hit on me when I said nothing but professionalism here. You got guest speakers heckling the host at the beginning of the night.
That's how we roll. That's how we roll.
So why should you listen to me? I've worked on campaigns for businesses that sell £1 million a day online. One of my former clients, and you'll understand why he's a former client, I tell you, just sold his websites for $36 million. So they're the biggest campaigns I've worked on, and I've helped small businesses achieve over 400% growth in the space of a year. Because I've only got 10 minutes, I don't want to waffle on about my usual 40-minute presentation that I do at dinner events and stuff. Hands up if you're B2B. So B2B wins, unfortunately, so if you're B2C, you're not going to get any stories from me tonight. So a lot of companies now are switching to trying to get business online, and there's all kinds of tools and techniques and everything. And when you look at how businesses are promoting themselves, I'm sorry, Jay, so many are still reliant on old-fashioned advertising, so they only know about billboards, radio, newspapers, the yellow pages. How many people are still paying the yellow pages money? Good, good, good. I once had half the room put their hands up and I almost had a heart attack. I was like, what on earth are you paying for? And that kind of advertising is from the era, and Gary's conveniently got me a prop. When you all leave tonight, you can look over to that side, and who watches Family Guy? Anyone?
Yeah.
Wacky inflatable flailing arm chew man, he's right out there ready for you. Even that guy from the wacky inflatable flailing arm chew man emporium knew how to advertise in those days. You smack some terrible stuff on TV and people will still buy. The new advertising platforms, things like Facebook, if you just put an advert on there for your business, like, oh, I'll do your books this year, check out my accounting website or something, no one's going to click on it. You can't use old-fashioned one-way advertising on the new media platforms. I'm picking accountants for a reason, because my first story is just about an accounting firm who was doing almost everything right, but I've got no idea what their name was, and that's their fault. And it's one of the big mistakes people have made when they started transitioning into online content and putting their stuff out there, is they don't find a way to connect back with those people after they've seen that initial piece of content. Because you've got no brand, you're selling B2B and you're a small business locally. People have heard of the big solicitors, people have heard of the big accounting firms, but they're all more expensive than you, they all offer worse service, they don't give you personal touch, all the things that you're selling yourselves on if you actually got the time to speak to these people. But all they're seeing from you first is some great blog post you did. And then they forget your name because they read it over their morning coffee, and then they go on with their day's work. And then 4 months later, when they were like, oh, I need an accountant, oh, I need my office cleaned, oh, I need whatever service you're offering, they've completely forgotten about you. And I can't even remember these guys, and I intended to use them in this presentation when I first did this, the longer version of this presentation last year at the Dudley and District Business Club. And the reason I don't remember their name, even though I intended to remember their name, is because they kept no way to keep in touch with me afterwards. What they were doing, and right, was they realised that's an accounting firm. The law changed obviously last year, and there was the announcement from the Chancellor that dividend tax was going to change. Hands up if you're really happy about that change. Exactly. Nice extra 7% tax for all of us with a limited company, good fun. So they've released the first proper explanation of it, how you'd work it out for yourself. Literally, they were out for, I mean, I'm connected to about 1,800 people on LinkedIn, and they're almost all accountants and solicitors. They were the first out there for this piece of content. It was the best one I read. Even the big firms rubbish they put out a month later was worse than this version. But once I'd read it, that was it. They didn't keep in touch with me, there was no follow-up, there was no way to connect. What they could have done differently is using marketing automation. So all they would have needed to do is just knock a spreadsheet together that lets me calculate it, put a few of the calculations in there so I can put my own numbers in, pay their solicitor once, so they've got a nice disclaimer on there, you know, this isn't tax advice, call it zero, blah, blah. Once they've paid for that once though, they can do this for every future campaign. So their solicitor does it for 200 quid, that's it done. Get me to give say at the end of the article, want to work it out for yourself? Don't bother following through all this stuff I've just explained to you. Give me your email address, I'll send you over a simple spreadsheet. And then they'd have been able to continually keep in touch with me on, and I'd remember their name in this presentation, and I'd be mentioning them right now instead of not mentioning them. So it's that kind of stuff that people are, you know, they're starting to make the right steps, they're doing good blog posts. You've got to think, what's my strategy after I've done a blog post. What am I going to do to keep in touch with those people? And then what a lot of people do is they're using just a simple thing like MailChimp, because it's cheap, you use MailChimp. But then all you get is, say you send out a newsletter once a month to those people you've signed up. What are you doing with that information about who's clicked what? Like, all you know about them is they read your newsletter and maybe they clicked that one. You don't know what they did on your site afterwards. You don't know if they came back to your site on a separate day. So if you're building up a following of a few thousand people, and it's just one or two of you working in the office, and MailChimp tells you you've got about 300 people that might be interested because they clicked something, what on earth are you going to do with that? I can't bring 300 people myself, and even with my business partner and a couple of other consultants, we couldn't get through 300 in a month who might be interested. What marketing automation helps you do is it'll look at the people who read it more than once, it'll look at the people that visited certain pages on your website, you can take negatives on certain pages. So say you've got a jobs page, if someone on your list is always on your jobs page, are they a sales prospect? No. So you're not going to bother phoning them when you're doing your sales. It can actually narrow it down to 10 or 15 people. So instead of getting a bunch of people like me talking about him without remembering his name, he could have got 10 or 15 really hot leads, people who checked out his content, spent a lot of time on his site over the next few months after reading his newsletter, and probably weren't getting the support and information they needed from their accountant. And so it's that kind of stuff that's really important. Hands up again, who gets a lot of business from the web right now? Obviously Gary. Who uses Facebook for their business? How much time, who spends more than 5 hours a week on Facebook? And you still don't. Well, you get lots of business and you don't, so we're 50-50 then. So what are you doing on Facebook if you're not spending enough time to get any traction and get any business out of it? And that's another mistake a lot of businesses do, is they spread themselves too thin across all the new shiny things. They're like, oh, everyone's talking about Facebook, let me get on Facebook and start, I'll just share a post now and then just for the sake of it. So that you go through the motions, but if you've got no real following, and even if you have 10,000 people on Facebook now, it's a brand page, they only show it to 5 or 10% of your followers unless it's really engaging and picks up traction by itself. So you're just completely wasting your time unless you're dedicating a significant chunk of your time to growing an audience and interacting with that platform in the way that they're used to and the way that they're expecting, with content that's interesting to them. And there's loads of fun ways of doing it. I mean, we're working with a cutlery manufacturer in America, and it's just silly things like, what's your favorite thing to use a spoon for at Christmas? And just crazy rubbish like that goes mad with all of their following. But you do 90% of your content's fun. When you do share something that's more promotional and more focused on selling stuff, Facebook shows it to more of your audience. But if you're only putting in 10 minutes a week to, oh, I'll stick my latest blog post on Facebook because I've done it, or I'll throw this out on Twitter to my 100 followers, you're just wasting your time. You're better off using that time emailing 5 people who might be interested in sharing their blog post with, like Leamington. If you've got an idea for a blog post, instead of sticking it on your blog and sharing it with nobody on Twitter and Facebook, why not write for Gary's site and get some actual exposure with a bigger audience? So instead of doing things because everyone's doing it and spreading yourself really thin across 10 different networks, really hone in your focus on this network I want to achieve this from, how am I going to achieve it? And if you haven't got an answer to that question, you've either got to do a lot more study and learning, or you're wasting your time. Just putting things on networks for the sake of it is pointless. So yeah, post on Grow Leamington. Don't waste your time spreading yourself too thin. Be super focused. If you're a small business, you have to do one channel really well, get that right. And then once you've got that right, the junior staff, your assistants, people you work with, can keep it moving while you start building on it. But if you're just doing everything badly, you'll get nothing from it, which we saw from the show of hands at the beginning was a big problem. Facebook is awesome though, and you should all be getting loads of business from it. So, and Twitter, Gary does really well on. So if you want to know about Twitter, talk to Gary more than me, because I don't like Twitter very much myself. So
I spend a lot of time on Twitter.
So yeah, Gary's your Twitter expert. Facebook Ask Me questions, and if you do a blog post that's really interesting, for goodness sake, collect their email at the end and do something useful with it afterwards. I'm going to just open it up to questions. It's such a small group. I'm happy to just go with some Q&A for a couple of minutes and then wrap up.
What's your thoughts about Google Plus?
It's really interesting actually. One of the guys I play darts with, he's a painter and decorator, and he just destroys the local search on Google Plus just by doing before and after pictures of every single project on there. So he does like, you know, weird fence repair, and he does all the exact description of it, before and after pictures. No one else has that content. No one has a page, this specific fence repair or this loft, you know, every project he has before and after pictures. So not only is he the only person in the area with those pictures, he's the only person with a page at all anywhere that's about them, and it's all in Google Plus, which Google will try and show if they can. It's becoming less important because internally they've kind of become frustrated with it, so I wouldn't be super excited if I was him that in 5 years' time this strategy is going to still be working, but in the short term, if you can do something fun, you can have it's visual, then you can complement your Google business page, which is Google My Business, is Google Plus for businesses now. You can complement your Google My Business page really strongly with some visual content and pictures and stuff. So if you use it right, again, don't spend 5 minutes a week on it sharing your blog post.
I tend to use it just because if I've got a blog post, you know, like for instance, I wrote about a story about, you know, the Gloucester service on the M5, the one that's environmentally. Within 2 minutes, I was on the front page if you put Gloucester in. I thought, well, that's about Gloucester, but that's for me. It's like, well, okay, I'll put things here because I know if I've got to do quite a bit of shifts, if I've got the final cut, it's like that's assuming people are still using Google search, which I guess a lot of people still do. I think.
Yeah, it has a 91% market share in the UK.
Yeah,
it's 70% in the US, but it's much higher in Europe.
That's really the only reason I use Google Plus, because I know it helps things in terms of rankings and finding things.
Yeah, put lots of pictures up with really detailed descriptions, and that's a good. There you go. Anything else? Go.
We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, not yet on Google Plus, on LinkedIn. Facebook's quite good for us. We've got quite a good following on there. But you said earlier it's better to do one thing well than trying to do them all.
If you have limited resources, yeah. If you feel like you're doing them all well, then obviously you can. But you know, if you're Gary Vaynerchuk or something who can be walking between meetings, Snapchatting, Instagramming, and then tweeting in his car, then obviously you can do them all. But if you're feeling like strained on resources, it's better to get one where you're getting the absolute maximum out of it. And Facebook, one thing a lot of people forget is that you can pay to play on there for huge additional reach, and the targeting is so powerful. I mean, you can get leads, B2B leads, for under $8 a lead on Facebook. If you target it to the exact right people, your content's really compelling, you're collecting the emails and you're following it up properly, which you compare to like the cost of your time to come to events and things like that. You know, you're going to spend $80 to get 10 leads, which is what, £47 or something. You know, it's really cheap. So if you've got something that's working organically, don't use the boost button though. That's the tip, I guess, for paying to play. Always use their power editor. Go through all the targeting manually, narrow it down to a nice small audience so that you can actually afford to reach them a couple of times with the ad for your budget, and then try generating some leads with the stuff that's worked really well for you organically. Scale that up with a little bit of pay to play, you know, just a couple of hundred to see how you develop it. And you'll start to get in love with the Facebook ads platform after about 6 months of playing with it.
And is it worth trying to get people that like you on Facebook to go onto Twitter and Instagram, or are they kind of separate users?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest ways people grow their other platforms is to cross-promote. Sometimes people like Gary Vaynerchuk do it to the point of being super annoying, like posting a link to his Instagram to watch his YouTube video, and you have to go. So yes, it does work. Obviously that's working for him, pushing it too far, but being less famous where people would just get annoyed and unfollowing you, you probably just need to do it more, you know, we're doing a Twitter contest, come and check out our Twitter, rather than I put this YouTube video in a Twitter link, you know, so yes, definitely do it, but do it naturally and in for some reason. Cool.
Any other questions?
We'll wrap up then.
Spot
Thank
on.
you very much for having me.
Thank you very much.